What's up, Ziza Connection? Today we have a really special episode. We're here with TyDi. TyDi, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm going to be completely honest with you, man. When I first saw your name spelled out, I thought it was TyDi.
You know, you don't have to worry about that because nearly every single interview I've ever done, they think the same. And also, when Tiesto has said it wrong as well, that was one of the more embarrassing times when he gave me an award in Miami a long time ago and called me TD.
Oh gosh, see, I wouldn't have thought about pronouncing it that way.
Yeah, I've run into a lot of problems with my spelling of my artist name.
Right. Have you seen Tiesto since? Has he gotten it right since then?
Oh yeah, I've run it. Yeah. That was the first time I met him in person.
Yeah.
Actually, no. Come to think of it, I warmed up for him back in the early days when I was DJing in Australia.
Right.
And he was touring in Australia, and I was his opening act for a couple of shows.
That's incredible.
But we never really spoke that much. And then the next time was in Miami, and yeah, TD was what I was called.
That's awesome. So speaking of being a DJ in Australia, I did a little bit of research. Obviously, your manager, Jason, is one of my closest friends.
Yeah.
So he gave me a little bit of the inside on what you've been about throughout your career, what your successes are, some of the things that you've done. And honestly, it's baffling to hear how much you've done with music over the course of your career in different realms, right? So like, for example, doing my own research, I saw that you were given an award for the #1 DJ in Australia 2 years in a row.
Yeah.
So and that was at a pretty young age for you, if I'm not.
Yeah. So I was very young. I don't like to think that I'm that old now, but I started off young, and I was like the high school music geek. And in Australia, it's a very sports-based country,
right?
And you know, people, they love rugby and football and all kinds of sports. Really, I just suck at sport. I'm not coordinated. I'm just terrible at it. And so I was kind of the guy that got like bullied in school by all the cool kids at the time, and spent my time in the music room trying to get away from that. But it led to something kind of cooler, I guess, because I spent all my time in the music room becoming just playing the piano, and then there's not much else you can do there except with everything that everything that I was hiding from turned out to be something that led me to a success. So and so I was on it at a very early age, and then I guess I kind of had a head start.
Right. I mean, you signed to your first label when you were 17 is what I read. How did you even get discovered at that age? Like, what were you doing at that time? And for those who are watching, like, this was a very different time in the world as well. You know, I would assume that the internet wasn't necessarily as big as it is now, and EDM as a whole, dance music as a whole, just wasn't as big of a force as it is now. So what were you doing back then that got you noticed in the first place?
Yeah, so I think the key word there that you mentioned is discovered. I never looked at it like that way. Like I never thought someone's going to discover me. And I think that is a key thing that has stayed with me till, for the last 15 years. No one's out there looking to find you. And so when I was hanging out in the high school music room, and I'd made songs, and I'd also entered these like local DJ competitions, ones where they were just local to 50 people. I had my eyes set on the prize. I wanted to. I saw this club. It was called Family Nightclub, and I was never allowed into it because I was only 16 when I heard about it. And my older sisters had gone to the club, and they would come back and they would say, like, oh yeah, we went out clubbing last night and it was insane. This club's called Family, and there's 2,000 people there going crazy to a DJ. And in my mind, I was like, wow, like people are like I was playing drums in a band, and so I understood live music, but I thought it was kind of interesting that you could choose songs, which is essentially what a DJ does, is that they're just choosing the right songs at the right time and mixing them in the right way, but they're not playing it like a live band does. And I would get these comments from people, from family members and my older siblings, friends. They would say, yeah, we went out clubbing and the DJ was amazing. And kind of, I guess it got ingrained in my brain. And so what I would do is I would I sold my drum kit and bought turntables. And back then there was no CDJs. It was all vinyl. So I was mixing on vinyl.
Okay.
And at home, so I would come home from school, and after I finished school, I would be in the garage mixing and all of that kind of stuff. And but yeah, I would spend a lot of time in school sending emails out to promoters around Australia, just constantly emailing everyone, and it was constant no, or no reply. But the very first reply I got, I can't remember his last name, but his name was Josh. And he was the promoter for a nightclub in Australia in Sydney called Gas Nightclub. And they had, I guess, an inbuilt crowd. And he wrote back to me and he went, you're 16? And like, I guess, enough emails and enough like pushing different people and different things. And someone's going to say yes eventually. And this guy said yes. And he said, all right, look, I can pay you $500 and book your flight and come and play at this club. And what was crazy about that was I knew straight away my dad would say no. Like there's no right. So I told him I was staying at a friend's house, and really I went to the airport, got on a flight and flew to a different city in Australia and played this really you got to think underground because like EDM was not a word. It had not blown up in America. Like America was hip hop and R&B. This is like, the music that I was hearing, the electronic music I was hearing was on dial-up internet in Australia.
Right.
So anyway, I remember still to this day, I remember sitting on that flight and looking out the window and looking down at all these like lights and thinking, geez, the world is big. And like, I'm lucky enough to be on a flight. Like that's crazy. That was crazy for me. That was wild. Like I'm a teenager in high school who's got like girls wouldn't even look at and just nerdy. I'm on my way to play at this nightclub, and then I get there and he arrives at the airport, and then we go to he drops me off at the hotel, and he's like, here's where you're staying. And I'm staying in the W Hotel, which is a norm now, but when you're 16 and you're
right
on Monday, you have to go back to high school. You have to do chemistry and physics. But I'm like, I was just, whoa! I'm now in a world that is just, it was unfathomable. It was just completely like a shell shock. And so I stay in this hotel, this really comfortable bed. There's a minibar, and someone's just said, have whatever you want. You're on at this time. We'll have a driver pick you up, and we'll drop you off at the club. So all of that emailing and all of that, like it's not just emails, but I was like constantly working on music and constantly trying to be the best I could at mixing and learning my art and getting that information from watching other people online and hearing about other DJs and what makes a good show from a bad show. All of that just eventuated into this one show where I played to 2,000 people, something like that, in Sydney, not even in my own city. And remember, I'm sorry if I'm talking too much, but my dream at that age was one day when I'm 18, because in Australia, being 18 is the legal age to drink. Okay. So I was thinking, when I'm 18, my goal is going to be to play at family nightclub, and maybe not in the main room, because it's like, out of, you just couldn't do that. It's just hard to imagine. Suddenly I'm there in Sydney, which is a much bigger city, playing to thousands of people. And on the flyer, it said, he's only 16. Like the marketing. So the promoter used my age as a
marketing tool.
Yeah. And you got to imagine all these people like off their face at the club, like probably like there for their favorite DJ, but a cool factor for them was that the 16-year-old kid is going to come and give it a go. And I think I ripped it up, and I think the crowd thought so too. And so that caught waves quickly. And then I was able to go back to school on Monday, pretend I hadn't been anywhere, and then and from there I was able to email more and more people, and my local nightclubs in Brisbane where I grew up, and say, hey, I just played to 2,000 people at Gas nightclub in Sydney, so you want to book me?
Yeah, you got those credentials now. You can do what you want in your own hometown.
Yeah, so it was a lot of hard work. It wasn't a discovery phase. It was actually more, I want this so badly that I'll do whatever it takes to get it. And then from there, I was playing in clubs in Brisbane, and then the rest of Australia wanted to book me because I'm this kid who mixes on vinyl, and was booked around Australia, and that's what led to the whole the popularity contest, which I don't like popularity contests that much because they're not really a measurement of talent, but it worked out, and I toured Australia, and yeah,
I mean, and vinyl's a whole different world. Like the vast majority of DJs now do not know how to work vinyl. They don't know how to DJ on vinyl, and that's a completely different realm of music. Yeah, so it's like it seems like you're not only were you willing to work to get the bookings, right? Because how many people do you know that go out of their way to make that kind of an effort is the thing. So that's kind of the separating factor for you, it seems like. But at the same time, you're also a huge student of the craft in general. It seems like you just lived and breathed music on a daily basis. So
yeah, and still do. Yeah.
It doesn't surprise me one bit.
Yeah.
You seem like a very passionate person in general. Like when you're into something, your whole heart.
Yeah, and it was. I can remember saying to my roommate, I won't name who the DJ is, but when I moved out of high school and was going to college, I remember saying to my roommate, if I'm not at that level by this age, I'll quit. So I was setting goals, and actually, I will say who it is because he's a friend of mine. It's Andy Moore. And so he's Andy Moore's a great buddy of mine. Tours the world. I have so much respect for him. He's so talented, and such a talented musician as well as a DJ. And I remember saying, if I am not touring the world like he is by age 25, then I'll quit, because I had to make it realistic in some way.
Right.
But that kind of drive is what really set my mentality. Set it up for where it is now, where it's just like I'm going for, this is what I'm going for, and I will do everything I can do to be good at it and to do that. And if it doesn't work out, then I'll accept that. But you have to kind of set those goals. And I can definitely say I didn't have a mentor. I didn't really have anyone then that told me to do that. I was just passionate, and I don't know where it came from. It was really passionate.
Did you have a hardworking father? In general, what did your family do? Do you think you got that kind of tenacity from somewhere in your family?
Well, I think it was really purely passion. My parents were going through a divorce. My dad was we went through the whole thing of will you live with your dad or your mom? And that's it. It was kind of tough. I have 3 sisters, and all of my sisters chose to live with my mom, and I was felt sorry for him, so I stayed with him. But he would support my love of music. He would actually sometimes give me $20 and say, all right, if you want to go buy a vinyl, here's $20. But he wouldn't do that all the time. It was just he always saw it as I didn't let him know that all I ever wanted to do and all I was going to do is music.
Right.
But I let him know enough that I'm so passionate about it that for him giving his son $20 to buy a record, a vinyl, when I say a record, I mean now we just can get them for free. But to go to the shop, and I would have to actually listen to hundreds of songs to find the one that I could afford, and the one best track, and add that to my collection. So he supported me in that way. But what was really crazy, and again, I don't know if I'm talking too much here, but
not at all, brother. Take your time.
But what was really crazy was I don't think he really thought there was money to be made in being a DJ, because you have to imagine for parents, especially back then, now DJing is like, well known, but back then, especially in Australia, my dad looked at it probably like a wedding DJ, didn't think that it was like something that could be a real business.
Right. And obviously a parent's going to be thinking about like, oh, I want my child to at least be able to support themselves.
Yes.
Right.
So he's doing everything he could to like do that. But I'll tell you a cool story. So my dad really kind of said, this can't be a full-time job. It just won't work that way. But years later, he moved to Thailand and lives in Koh Samui.
Okay.
And I had a show to 40,000 people on the beach in Thailand, and I didn't tell him that it was New Year's Eve, and I didn't tell him that I would be playing to 40,000 people on the beach. And where the DJ stage was set up was out on a barge, like I don't know what you like floating big thing outside, like past the wave break.
Right.
And so at this point in my career, I'd already been flying around the world playing shows, but he didn't know that, like, or really understood it until I went, oh, I'm playing in Thailand. I'm going to bring my dad to this. But I did it in a really cool way. I said, hey, Dad, I haven't seen you in forever, and I'd love to like catch up. And so I had him picked up by a driver and he had no idea where he was going. Then the driver pulls up at the beach, and I'm like, hey, Dad, like, so good to see you. I love you. And he's like, what's going on? Like, we having a party for New Year's Eve? And I'm like, yeah, get in the boat. He gets in a speedboat where he nearly fell out of. So we had to we had to get into this boat. Then the speedboat rips across the waves, takes us out to a barge, about 40 minutes before my set time. We get off the boat, onto the barge. I hand him his favorite whiskey. Dad loves whiskey. I hand him all the whiskey, and he's like, oh, what's this for? And I said, it's yours. And then I looked at my clock, and he's just still kind of trying to work out why he's out on this barge, and there's crowds of people on the beach. And then I went, okay, I'm up, come with me. And I brought my dad right onto the stage with me.
Oh, man.
He cracks open the whiskey. I get on the mic, and I was like, how you doing, Thailand? I think he was in Phuket. No, and I went, yes, I might be not remembering every detail.
Right.
But I was like, how you doing? The crowd goes nuts. He's seeing thousands of people on the beach going crazy. And I went, this is my job. And Dad just looked at me, and we had that son-father moment. And he looked at me and he goes, I'm proud of you.
Oh, man.
It was wild, right?
Dude. That's one of those stories that you think about, like, in the course of your lifetime. You're like, that's just one of those moments in life where you're just like, I did it. You know what I mean? I really did what I said I was going to do. Yeah, that's like, I'm sure all of the painstaking work, because obviously not everything you've done in your career has been easy or fun for you, I'm sure.
No, it's often, like I said earlier, like it's still to this day, you get 99 no's and 1 yes, but you just chase those yeses.
Yeah.
So it's never been super easy, but that was one of those moments where it was definitely like, he got to see it was a real job at that point. He was like, I think it just all connected in like one single moment. He got to see thousands of people yelling and me playing electronic music and him coming on a boat to get there. That was a pretty cool, like, told you so moment. Like,
I love that. I love that. So you did some work for Disney too. Now, was that before, was Disney before or after this event?
Oh, way later.
Way later? Okay.
Yeah.
And so I feel like nowadays it's a little bit more common for DJs or people that are in the music industry in general to be looking to kind of do some film work or try to do some work here or there, because I hear there's a lot of money in that kind of thing. So a lot of artists who are trying to, make a living from doing music find an opportunity in doing so within television or within movies or anything like that.
Yeah.
So were you recruited to do that type of thing? Did you go out of your way to try to find that type of a job or that kind of work? How did that work for you?
Yeah, so it's another, I feel like I'm going to be filled with long stories here.
I love long stories, man. Be my guest.
So When I finished high school, another story with my dad included. He said, "You have to get a degree," and I was like, I had to pay for it and do all of that. But he said, like, I guess I was always looking up to like make my parents proud in a way.
Right.
And he said I have to get a degree, and I didn't. He said I have to get a degree. I thought, no, I don't want to, because I'm already, by that stage, I was already touring the world playing music. Yeah. So by that stage, like after high school, when I was told I had to get a degree, you have to fill out this form. I don't know if it's the same in America, but you fill out a form of all the universities that you want to get into. Okay. And I only wrote down one. And I thought, there's no way I'm going to get into this. But if I do, on the off chance get into it, it's got to be something I want to do. So instead of choosing like medicine or like, I was into physics. I nailed physics, I nailed chemistry, I nailed like all of that stuff in school. But I only wrote down one college that I wanted to get into, and that was the Conservatorium of Music, where you basically study musical theory and all of that. So I wrote that down, didn't expect to get it, and sure enough, we get the letter. Out of 3,000 applicants, I got in. So there I was. So I studied 4 years of classical training, musical theory, but as well as like sound design, music. It's a Bachelor of Music Technology.
Okay.
And so I've always had that in me to do that. And during those years, I would walk down through like the corridors of the university, and I would hear people playing violin, and I would hear all these people that I'm sure that in their lives they wanted to be a violinist in an orchestra, or some people wanted to be a conductor or a composer. Right. So I would be hearing all this stuff, and it made me think, one day I want to score music for movies or do orchestral music. But that was one day, because in the future, like, I didn't see myself doing anything else but playing at festivals and clubs. But anyway, I did the degree, finished the degree, and toured while doing it. And then consistently did, say, 100 to 150 shows a year for years and years and years. And then I started to find the touring so much that I had the blessing to be able to dial back a bit and go, all right, I'm going to take a year and not be spending every night of my life in a hotel room in a different city. And so here I was, and in Los Angeles. So fast forward now, and I was sitting down at a local restaurant, and I just finished my album Collide, which I did with Christopher Tin, who's a 2-time Grammy Award-winning composer. And so I spent a good 2 years learning how to make orchestral music work with electronic music. And that was a huge challenge for me, which we could talk about in a different thing. But so imagine this, I've just made this album, just released it, called Collide, which has hundreds of instruments that I would never have worked with before. And it had been released, and I was there sitting at this restaurant, and this lady sat down next to me, and she sat down and she went and let out a big sigh. And I looked at her, and I guess I was just bored and looking for conversation. And I said, "Oh, like rough day, huh?" And she goes, didn't talk to me. And so I ordered another glass of wine and just kept sitting there. And then I said to her again, like, "How's your day going?" And she goes, "Yeah, it's all right." And I asked her what she does. And she goes, "Well, I'm the director of Disney on Ice." And she goes, "Right now, we're currently doing a show. And it's just, I love my job. It's just a bit stressful." And I said, "I relate." And we struck up a conversation. And I said, "What's particularly the thing right now that's stressful?" And she said, "Well, I really want electronic music to work with orchestral music in the show." And my mind went like, wow. Like, holy shit. Can I swear on this podcast?
Absolutely.
So being in LA for 7 years, I've learned very well that everyone talks up their game. Everyone just bullshits. And everyone thinks that they all have egos. So the second she said that to me, I thought, oh my God, I can do this. Like I just did an album with an orchestra and electronic music. So, but I didn't want to let her know. I didn't want to be like, hey, so yeah, I do that. I could try that. So instead I went, oh, that's really like, yeah, that sounds interesting. Like, what is it that's the particular song? And she told me it was like, she told me the song was A Whole New World from Aladdin. And I got the brief out of her just by talking. And she was like, yeah, so we would kind of want it to open with this big like orchestral bit, but then go into banging dance. And like after that, more orchestra. And I was like, okay, cool. And so anyway, I went, oh, cool. It's good to like live in this area. If you ever want to connect here, you know, do you have a card? She gave me a card. I casually walked out of the restaurant. And before she knew that I left the restaurant, I ran home. And I ran home and I called my buddy, Christopher Tim, the same guy who I did the album with, Collide.
Right.
And I was like, dude, this crazy situation has come up and they need this in like 48 hours. And I wasn't offered the job. I just wanted to see if I could get it.
Right.
And I said, dude, I don't have the musical ear to hear all of the orchestral parts in A Whole New World. Can you please give me the transcription for it? So Christopher Tin goes, you got me at the right time. I have a baby on my lap. He had a newborn baby at the time. So he listened to the song and he has perfect pitch. So that ear, he was able to hear the entire song and then give it to me in the form of MIDI, like as in MIDI files.
Okay.
And that's basically all of the information I needed to be able to proceed with doing it. So I was like, thank you so much, Chris. He sends me this file. I get to work. I didn't sleep for 2 days. I called my A&R at Universal and I said, okay, I need someone who could sound like Aladdin. And I also called my friend London Thor and I said like, okay, because I knew she'd be good for this. Can you get here at 6 p.m.? She's like, well, 4. I said, please. And so in the space of 48 hours, maybe less, I had 2 vocalists show up. They sang the parts for A Whole New World. I'd done all of the orchestral arranging for this piece and I sent it to, because I still had an email. I won't name names, but I sent her the email and I sent her the song. And I'm pretty sure the email I got back, the email came back very excited. And from there, I got phone calls of, can you do this? Can you do that? Would you be able to do this song? So I became a partner on so they basically just said, we want you as a partner for Disney on Ice for the music team. Can you do that? Bang. And then I was in it. So it came from right place, right time. And yeah, the rest is history. So I spent the last 2 years working on Disney on Ice.
Are you still doing that? Do you still do any work for them or have you kind of parted ways and moved on to a different project?
I wish I was, but right now, because of COVID,
right.
So like those shows rely on hundreds of thousands of people that they tour the world. So this year, no, but the year before and the year before that, I was doing a bunch of music for them, for Disney on Ice.
So is it because of COVID that you've decided to pick back up the DJ project and kind of work on getting back into doing your own kind of composition and stuff like that?
No, I was always thinking I would tour again and be a DJ, but you gotta imagine if you're age 30 and you've already done 10 years of playing in like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of cities, like more than like I've been to more places in the world that I could imagine. That opportunity arises. That became my new thing. I was like, all right, I'm now doing Disney on Ice. But at the same time, I also managed to pick up an agent who represented me for score, for film, for TV ads. So that led to this whole thing of where I was able to flex my musical muscles, in which, like, you know, where I studied music and did that degree when I was way younger, I was able to go, okay, well, you know, anyone who said, hey, like, anytime I wanted to try something in like making music for an ad or a film or a video game, I at least had my degree to say, like, yeah, I'm classically trained. And I didn't really even mention that I was a DJ or that I made electronic music. I was able to use that. And so I got all these opportunities through hard work and determination. But during that, I've started making electronic music. Is like, I mean, I continue to make electronic music and still did. I just dialed back the touring so I could so I had enough time.
Right.
But
so are you compiling songs for an album that you're getting ready to release? Or are you kind of just feeling things out and trying to figure out? Because I know, a lot of the time, for example, with YouTube or with having a show, right? You think about different segments and you think about what kind of segments you want to be putting out. What purpose do those segments have? What exactly do you want to be portraying with those segments?
Yeah.
So I think about it in respect to music. I would think you guys do the same thing, right? Like, what message do I want to put out with my next project, with my next album, with whatever it is? Is it like that? Or do you kind of just already have a feeling of what sound you want and what you want to portray?
Yeah, I think so. It's really quite hard for me because I think my biggest downfall in my career is that I haven't created a really finely tuned brand. Like if you look at Armin van Buuren, he has a state of trance, and he's like, if you say the word trance to someone, it's going to be Armin van Buuren, Above and Beyond, those kind of things. If you say dubstep, first thing comes to mind, Skrillex.
Right.
Like, for me, I did trance, but then I also made house songs. Then I made I was never the one to be satisfied with where I was at. I always feel like, I made a song called Redefined, which went to #1 in 1 year, and every show I ever played, people wanted to hear that song. And there was one show where I forgot to play it and the crowd got really upset. And I got all these emails why didn't you play Redefined? It's kind of like seeing your favorite band, like the Killers, and then not playing Mr. Brightside.
Right.
So anyway, I get, once I do something that's successful, I kind of check it off my list. I've done that. And so musically, I jump from genre to genre. Like this year I put out Start Again, which is a cross between electronic and country, with Brenly Brown, which is she's a country singer. And then after that, I did a pop song called Nerve, with Gina Fontanella, who's more she was on American Idol, and she sounds more, she was there with Katy Perry. She's got an amazing voice. But the point is, I changed from genre to genre to genre, and I keep doing that. So it can be a bad thing for me and my brand, because when people say, who's TyDi?
There's not really a definitive answer.
Yeah, are you going to go, if you go to a TyDi show, are you going to see a house set or a trance set? But the answer is and this actually melds in why I tell my booking agent when I'm touring, I want to play a 3-hour show, because I need enough time to get through all of the genres I want. Like at a TyDi show, you're going to get house music, you're going to get very deep into techno, then you're going to get some pop songs and remixes of pop songs, and then you're going to get to my classics, but then you're going to get trance songs at the end. So I've kind of made this brand where it's crossing so many different genres, but I'm okay with it because it keeps me happy. It's kind of selfish, but as long as I'm happy making the music and the fans are happy, that's great. But there definitely is something to be said about, I don't look at the next year, next year I am going to sound like this. It doesn't work that way with me. It's, what am I passionate about now? What am I going to create right now? And then I'm like, this is a great song. I don't care what genre it is. It's just a good song. And I just pile them up and release them. But in saying that, I do prepare for albums. Last year, I prepared for an album to come out this year, but COVID hit, and it kind of, all the lyrics didn't really make sense as to what was going on in the world.
Gotcha.
So I put them on the back burner, and I started writing songs that were more applicable to what's going on in the world today.
Just like one of your newest songs that recently came out.
Yeah.
You did that one with Bella, and the lyrics are spot on with exactly what the world is dealing with right now.
Yeah. Exactly. So that's an example of adjusting my musical direction and lyrics and storytelling to what's happening in the current moment.
Gotcha. So, I mean, with respect to what you see for the future, I guess, right? What is it that you're honing in on right now? What's your kick at the moment?
It's a good question. I'm working on music that I think is a little more pushes the boundaries again. So I'm probably still doing the same thing essentially. Like now I think about it, like my manager, amazing person, he says things that are very important. Like managers have to think business. Like, how do I market this artist? How do I make this artist successful? So they want to see a package. Like they want to say, like, I need 4 house songs that sounds like pretty, like, you know, coherent
form at least.
Yeah. And so I am doing that, but every time I do it, I'm like not satisfied with it sounding like anyone else's song. So I'm finding myself still pushing the limits like crazy. And this house song I just wrote, I don't even know if it's house. It's like, I got all crazy with distortion and just like literally everything except a kick drum is ran through distortion. So it just sounds like this big, it sounds like if you could try to imagine what the sound of the inside of the sun would be, like this just like thermal nuclear fission, like it sounds like that. And the only thing containing it in that is the kick drum. So you have this kick drum and everything else is just like just constantly morphing. And then my idea is to, which I haven't recorded yet, but I wrote it yesterday, is to record a beautiful vocal right in the breakdown. So you get this big, just disastrous, massive coolness, and then it breaks down, and you have this really beautiful vocal that just brings you back in. But then as the vocal fades away, you just hear it coming back, and then just drops into madness again. So that was my latest track that I just kind of finished. I'm still working on the vocal bit, but yeah. To answer your question in simple, I don't think anyone can stop me from experimenting.
Yeah, I mean, you just seem like you're a big kid in a playground when it comes to music. Yeah. You can't, for example, like the band Bring Me the Horizon is one of my favorite bands of all time. Right. Nice. And I had a discussion on my Facebook the other day about why I think Bring Me the Horizon has been one of the most versatile groups, one of the most versatile musical entities of the last 10 years, because they've bounced around through a lot of different genres throughout their career. And, you know, in part due to the fact that, you know, these guys who do a lot of screaming vocals, your vocal cords can only take so many years of that before they die. So they had to find a way to adapt. But at the same time, it came in a way that they were given the opportunity, I'll say, to experiment with other types of music, to experiment with other things they might be interested in. And it's all been amazing, in my opinion. So, yeah. And I'd like to think, you know, I'm a big hip hop guy. I'm huge on rap, and the rap and hip hop community is one where, or at least it used to be, where if a rapper were to drastically change his sound or do something different with his sound, he would get bastardized for it, right? Everyone hate on him for changing how he raps or changing his style, anything like that. I don't think we live in that world anymore.
Yeah, and thankfully so. Like, I definitely got a lot of heat from when I went from trance to more commercial sounds. And what's crazy is that I wasn't going to more commercial sounds because I wanted to be more commercial. I just had done so much trance. I'd done so much of it. I was like, it's kind of, I always say that you'll hear this a lot in interviews, and I'll say it here. Imagine if you were told you're a painter, and you have to be a painter for the rest of your life. So here's your colors, here's your paintbrushes, and here's the canvas. But all you can paint for the rest of your life is a picture of the beach. You'd go nuts. Maybe some people wouldn't. Maybe they'd perfect different beaches. But for me, I have to, every time I approach that canvas, which is looking at my computer screen and looking at Logic and the software I use, or playing a piano, I can't do the same thing again. I could, but why? Like, I've done the previous stuff.
Well, I mean, there's something to be said about that too. Just like on a person-to-person level, like you have to be able to recognize who you are and how you work and what makes you happy. And so, I mean, ultimately, if you weren't happy making music, would you still be making music?
No.
Exactly. So, I mean, to some degree, recognizing and knowing yourself has made you successful in its own. And knowing that you're the kind of person who's not going to be happy staying boxed in within one thing is probably what's propelled you forward to do all of the different crazy, cool things that you've done.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. I mean, I'm like you're saying, I'm super glad that we don't live in a world where people can't experiment with their sound anymore. And largely in part due to the fact that, or I would think that labels have a lot to do with that. You know what I mean? Trying to box artists in because obviously they're looking to make money off of your music. That's the whole thing of the label and the industry in a sense. And they want to box you in because they know what's going to make money for them. They know what kind of music you can put out that's going to produce a profit.
Yeah, that's such a good point that you're saying. And I've been on major labels before. I've been on Republic Records. They have Taylor Swift and Avicii when he was alive. The biggest artists in the world are on Republic, and I had a great time being on their label. Also, licensed music to Sony. I'll be careful here, but I've been on a lot of major labels, and the tough thing about it, it's both a blessing and a curse. The blessing is that you get this team around you that work with you to make a record really good. But the curse is no one really actually knows what's good, even myself. Like even the artist is what I mean. Like, because art is subjective, but there are a few things that are objective, and that is people. If you look at all the biggest hit songs from the last 10 years, they mostly have the same four chords. If we're working in the key of C major, like C, G, A, F, or A, C, F, G, they have the same four chords. But there are ways to get around those things, but you're going to find the biggest pop songs always have very similar chord progressions, and they have very similar rules. And they're all used to be 3 minutes and 30 seconds for a radio edit. Now it's like 3 minutes. Now I have to keep my songs under 2 something. I personally don't look at that too much, but when you're on a major, all of those rules apply. You have to have it like commercially viable. You have to have lyrics that will, mean something to people. You have to pass all these tests, and sometimes what happens is you end up losing the joy of making the song because you're limited and you're boxed in.
You're confined. There's some sort of confinement.
Yeah, and that's what led to my alias, Wish I Was, which maybe you don't know about it. But
I do. I was about to ask about that, actually.
Yeah. So in 2015, when I released Redefined and the album, that one particular track, Redefined, went really, really big. It was being played by everyone, and it was the #1 dance airplay record for the year. And that's great. But the thing is, again, won't name names, but during the year after, everyone who was there to help me and be my friends were all saying, you have to do another Redefine. You've got to do another Redefine. And I would always say, I'm trying. I'm really trying, but I've made it. That's the thing. I made that song. Like I can copy it, but if I copy it, I'm dragging a template across and following the same rules. And I couldn't do it. And I actually went to quite a dark place. I got really, really, really instead of being extroverted, I became very introverted and very worried about everything. And I started to only write music with people who were close friends. Cameron Walker being one of them, who's in a band called Twin XL. Also a friend of mine, Jordan from the Ready Set. These are all, yeah.
Love the Ready Set.
Yeah. So Jordan's a good friend of mine. I text him on the daily, dude, what do you think of this? Can you give me some tips on the mix down? Do you think it sounds good? But my point being, I started to box myself in and just work with people that cared about me as a person and not me as a business. And I would always find myself after a bottle of wine saying, I wish I was able to do this. I wish I was able to do that. And I wish I was. And that's how Wish I Was came about. And so I started making all these really weird underground tracks, and I released it on Spotify. By then I had a record label, and I knew how to release music. I released it anonymously as Wish I Was, and that was how I was born. And if fans who really who don't believe this story, I think it's a marketing tactic. You just have to go on the Instagram of Wish I Was from the very start when it started and look and scroll up. It's basically a guy that had depression. I look at it now and I have trouble looking at the Instagram for Wish I Was, because I look back on it and I'm like, shit, like I was in that place. It's pictures of me in a hotel room, just sad. And obviously I understood branding enough to be able to go to be able to put those images out there and create that brand. But the brand is real. Like, it really was this guy who was being told to make music that he didn't want to make. And so instead hid under this alias. It was only until a year later, when Wish I Was started being played on the radio across America, that my manager at the time said, hey, your Wish I Was stuff is better than your TyDi stuff. And I feel like saying, well, why did you make me do it? Because that's what happens when you box someone in. You tell them they have to do something, and they do something different, and then you go, oh, it's too different, that will never work. And they end up doing something that works better. And so, so Wish I Was is a great brand to have. It's a great alias, and I'm very, like, I now I have the blessing of being able to release a song as Wish I Was if I feel like I want to be in that mood, or I can release a song as TyDi if I'm in that mood. So I have more musical freedom. And
Wish I Was is completely independent?
Yeah.
And TyDi right now is also completely independent?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So you talked about your previous manager too. So what is the process of like picking a manager been? So Jason, like I said, Jason is one of my closest friends, right? So I can personally say, great choice in a manager. But at the same time, it can be hard. Obviously, you have like a personal relationship with someone you're going to have as a manager. So it's a big decision to make.
Yeah.
How have you gone about making that decision so far? Because, you know, up until this point, I've had a couple of younger artists on my podcast, all under the age of like 25.
Yeah.
And only, I believe, 2 or 3 of them have managers.
Yeah.
And the one thing that I've been able to pick up is that it's always been a touchy subject. It's always been kind of a difficult thing to navigate for them, right? To figure out what the right balance is, who should be there, what they should be allowed to do. How do you go about navigating that and figuring that out?
Yeah, so, I mean, so there's some basic rules that, like, I think, so a manager would have basic rules that they would look for in an artist, or basic, attributes, and an artist has certain attributes they need in a manager. The ideal manager for me is somebody who accepts my flaws but also pushes me to keep working if I'm down. It is true that managers are there emotionally. And I think, you know, if you spoke to any of my previous managers, you'd find out that there are definitely moments that have happened where they're emotional. But what really led me to Jason was we weren't starting a conversation about management. He reached out to me. I can't remember my previous booking agent, David, who's awesome, who would book shows for me around the world. Anyone he talks highly about, I would, you know, it's like a friend of his is a friend of mine. So we got talking about a project Jason had, which is totally different. It's a mentorship project. But
right.
I loved Jason's work ethic. I just liked, and I just said to him, have you ever thought about managing artists? Something to that essence. And he was like, yeah, I'm an artist manager. And I didn't say like straight away, like, you know, will you manage me or anything? I just kept talking to him and tried to kind of work out what kind of person he is. And he just struck me as a person that's motivated. What's cool is that he's younger than me. Like, so he's like, he's got his finger on the pulse with what's cool, but also respects that I've been around for longer. And so there's that cool relationship going on. Then there's also that he's not a fucking idiot. he's He's not. He strikes me as someone who's a man of science. Like he just today, I'll give you an example. Just today, I texted him this. I'd have to even. I'll pull it up here.
Please do.
Just today, there's this guy who I've been in contact with for a very long time, who's a billionaire, self-proclaimed billionaire, who I have never really worked with on a business level, but has like put these really like wild claims out there. And I, again, for just safety reasons, I can't say names, right. But had suggestions that I know every part of my rational brain has said, don't waste your time talking to this person. But then there's these other parts that's like, okay, he's a billionaire, he doesn't understand the music industry, and he wants to work with me on a project, but his text's kind of creepy and all that stuff. So, I just texted Jason about it, and I'm like, dude, every part of me is saying this doesn't feel right, but I need an opinion. And Jason's response is just so grounding. It was he literally wrote back, if it's too good to be true, then ... And that was enough to snap me back into line. And I went, yeah, he's fucking right. yeah. You know what? That's true. So sometimes managers don't have to do a lot. Sometimes they don't have to do a ton. But I think what makes a good manager is someone who is able to see what you're good at, see what you're bad at, and hone in on what you're good at, and then exploit that.
Right.
In a good way.
It seems like the best manager-artist relationships always happen from a more or less natural situation like the one you described with Jason, right?
Yeah.
And it starts, just like you said, you guys talked for a while. There wasn't any rash decision that was made where you were immediately like, will you manage me? It comes like any relationship does or any friendship does. And that's probably why it seems to be working so well.
Well, yeah, and like still to this day, like I think we're both of solid understanding that if we didn't get along for some weird reason, it would be fine. Like, as long as, but I'm not saying that would happen. I'm just saying, like, we entered the relationship in the sense of Jason was like, yeah, this year sucks. And I'm like, yeah, this year sucks. Like, no one's doing as well as they were in 2019. But Jason was like, but hey, I'm planning for the future. I'm focusing on the future. Let's make it so that in 2021, you come out of the gates running. That's the kind of person you want to be around. You want to be around people who don't sit there and wallow in like, just nothing I could do right now. Maybe I should scroll through Twitter and look at what other people are doing and maybe see if I can copy some of that. Or no, you want someone who goes, ignore everyone else. Don't look at what other people are doing because that's their business. Focus on how you're going to kill it in the future. What do you want to do? And there's only so much Jason can do to make me do something. Like, he may have the best suggestions in the world, but if I'm not motivated myself to do it, he can't push me to do it. And he can't get angry if I don't and I don't think he would because it's just a waste of everyone's time. So it's just awesome to just work with somebody where like it's just we both want to see each other succeed, and that's it. And I think that is important not just with managers but with artists as well. There's
like
this
other artists that you plan on working with.
Yeah, or like people that are successful. So people say the music industry is cutthroat,
right?
And they can give you countless reasons as to why it is, and yeah, it is. But at the same time, everyone that I've seen that's successful, they have one thing in common. They don't put other people down. Instead, they lift up the people around them. So, and that sounds really cliche. It sounds like I'm some sort of like guru. I'm not, but
but a lot of the time, those cliche phrases, man, they're the most true and honest thing ever. Quite honestly.
Like, there's two choices. Do you want to sit around and look at someone else's social media feed and be like, oh, they're killing it. Why aren't I? Therefore, I don't like them. That's such a, it should be the inverse of that. It should be, I want to see everyone around me succeed, because if they all succeed, they'll lift me up. And it's the way it works in nature. Like, it's why, we could go crazy here, but like, you know, dogs are in packs. Like, if one dog is taking a shit, the other ones stand around it because they're vulnerable. Like, you help the people around you, and the people around you help you, and that is a very important thing. And I think the biggest trap that artists can fall into is being competitive and too competitive with each other. There is some competition if you're fighting for the exact same opportunity, which happens to be very rare. But if you got to remember, at any day, every single day, I think there's something like 40,000 new songs being uploaded to Spotify.
I've never heard that statistic before, but that's much higher than I would have anticipated hearing it is.
Yeah, let's see. Hang on one second. How many songs?
I need to get a fact checker for the podcast, just someone like sitting over there.
I just want to be quoted on it in case.
Yeah, that's insane.
So it looks like, 40,000. Nailed it.
Nice.
Okay, so every day, roughly 40,000 songs get uploaded to Spotify. What's going to be more likely? That you try to fight the other 39,999, or that you support the largest number of songs you can that you like in that sample size, and they'll support you back. That's it.
Yeah. You take a very methodical, like a very human approach to this stuff. You know what I mean? And I think that's kind of one of the things that sets you apart. And even though you dealt with that depressive, I guess we'll call it an era of your life.
Oh yeah.
Even though you dealt with that, you still have this very human, very like, it's real. You know what I mean? This isn't just a career for you. It's not just a job. It's not just competitive. You're not just here to make some set of accolades and then leave. This is something you genuinely enjoy doing. But I don't think that's something that can be said for everyone that's in the music industry. I actually don't think that's something that can be said for the majority of people in the music industry.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's special to me, but it's definitely true that I'm human, and if I go on an interview like this one, or a podcast, or anywhere, I have no secret agenda. It's always just about like this, like I'm so lucky that I get to live. I think maybe as well I'm coming from a place of privilege where I've been successful in music. Therefore, I'm blessed with being able to wake up in the morning and only work on music, or and get to do crazy cool things like this, like chat to you, for example, and get to hear your perspective on things and have questions that challenge me and make me think. I think that's a blessing. I definitely don't. I try to rid myself of anyone that's toxic. That's important. And the music industry has a lot of people that are toxic, but they're easy to find. It's pretty easy to work out if someone's like.
Once you've been around the block, you know how to spot them.
Yeah. You know what's weird is that the people who I know that tend to be the most successful are always the most down to earth people. Like just today, a friend of mine who sings on one of my songs asked me if I could do them a favor and see if they could sing on a song for the Chainsmokers. And they know that I have their contact. And I said, like, it's a long shot. And so, but there was nothing stopping me. I could have just said, no, it just won't happen. But instead I just said, okay, I'll text them. And texted them. I get my answer. And the answer that I got back, I'm not going to say if it was yes or no, but was superhuman. It was just like super just realistic. And how many people can like a lot of people, I guess what I'm saying is that it seems like the most successful people, like even the people that everyone gives shit to, like Steve Aoki, so many people give him shit. I know that guy. I don't know him as a best friend, but I've toured the world for 10 years and he has too. And we shared the same, we had the same agent who would book our flights, our same travel agent. And that guy works his ass off. He like, if you've ever seen how much time he puts into just the touring aspect of his career, whether you like his music or not, he's works his ass off. Not just that, for someone of that fame, if I sent a text message to him, he'll write back. So I guess what I'm trying to say is like the famous people and the people that are the biggest always seem to be the most real.
It seems like the people who are the most manipulative or the ones I guess you got to watch out for. It always seems like are the kind of the middle of the pack, like almost making it there, haven't quite made it there, but are also like not unknown. Yeah.
And those people also do change. Like, I don't like to put people into a bucket or play like identity politics, but those people change too. Like I've seen some people that have, I deleted their number because they've just annoyed me so much. They've just like texted every day, like, when are we going to collab? When are we going to collab? And my answer is being honest, is like, right now I'm not doing a collab. I just don't want to do a collab right now. I'm focusing on this thing, but maybe let's chat like later. But they still keep harassing you. Then I've watched those kinds of people come around and they eventually, their career grows in a different way. And then you run into them somewhere at a bar and they're a whole different person. And suddenly they've grasped, they understand. It's like I can immediately go, I see, you got it. Like you now understand that getting to that collab is not about how many times you ask for it. It's about just understanding real human interaction. And I happen to be a very passionate person. If you want to work with me on something, it's not just like, hey, dude, like I have this many followers, you have this many, so we should do a collab. You're more likely to get something with me if it's like, hey, here's something I've done that I think you'd like because I like this about your music and such, and then I listen to it. And if it's truly impressive, I'm in it. I'll be straight in.
Yeah.
And I've been on a rant for too long now.
Yeah. So I have one last, I guess question that applies to everything that we've talked about.
Yeah.
We've talked about your career. You've talked about the things in the music industry that you've experienced. You've talked about the people that you've experienced. To the artists who are younger.
Yeah.
And thinking about getting into the music industry.
Yeah.
Who have all of the resources that are available to them now.
Mm-hmm.
What are the 2 or 3 or even just the single most important thing that you can tell them as someone who's been around the block for 10 years?
I would say this is a little bit of a paradox because I would say you have to be absolutely, without a doubt, so passionate and so determined because you love it that you cannot live without it. You have no other option but to succeed at it. Now, the paradox in that, and the reason why that's a weird answer, why it's a catch-22, is because those are the people who are already going to make it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you can't teach someone, no matter how many times I say to someone, you have to just be passionate and determined and have drive. You can't teach that. That comes innately. You have, like I said, when I was in high school and I had no friends and nothing else, I knew one thing in my head, and that one thing was I will tour the world as a DJ. And it wasn't because of fame or anything like that. It was because I loved music and electronic music specifically so much that a life without it just didn't make sense to me. I couldn't imagine being a doctor. I couldn't imagine being a pilot. They're all amazing jobs, but I could not see myself in any other position than I am in now. So I feel like the people that will make it will be the ones that really, really, really are doing it for the love. But if I had to take that away, I would say understand that the odds are against you because they are, unfortunately. But all it takes is one song and being at the right place at the right time. And don't let negativity stop you from trying. Every time you get knocked down, get back up, because just like I told you, I took that meeting, but it wasn't a meeting. I went to lunch, the right place, the right time. And I met someone from Disney and I worked from Disney on Ice. But when you do get those opportunities, jump at them and overperform. Always overperform. Like your work ethic has to be spot on. You have to. Yeah, and there's no way to cheat it as well. That's the other thing. There's no way to cheat. Like it might be temporary, but I bet on your podcast you could name lots of people where they're laughed at because they cheated at their job and they don't. Yeah, let's not go there. But true passion and love of music will get you there. And experiment and find your sound. Maybe don't make the same mistake I did where I continually change genres. Maybe that's my brand. Maybe that's it.
Maybe you've created a new kind of brand out of doing that.
Maybe my brand is that. What the hell is TyDi going to drop next? What does he do? Is he pop? Is he trance? Is he house? Is he techno?
You know what that sounds like to me is one of those like 10, 15 second advertisement reels where there's just a voice in the background and you're walking type thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, who knows? Maybe that's my brand.
Maybe. Dude, it's been such a pleasure talking to you. Like, I really didn't know what to expect when I came into this because I don't know anything about you outside of like what's available on the internet or what Jason has said.
Yeah.
But obviously, when you have someone as close to you as Jason is to me, talking so highly about your character as a person, not even your music, like that's one of the distinctive things here. Before I heard anything about any of the songs that you've made, before I heard any of your music, the first thing I heard come out of his mouth was, "Oh yeah, Tyson's just such an awesome dude."
That's awesome. I mean, I didn't know you said that. So that's sweet.
So
I like to hear that. I mean, thank you for telling me.
Absolutely, bro. Like that was the first thing I heard come out of his mouth when he referenced you. And then obviously, Jason and I have an ongoing relationship because we've both been there to help each other succeed in whatever we were working on. Anytime he has a project that he's working on, he contacts me. Anytime I'm working on anything, I contact him. Not even because there's anything for us to specifically work on, but because we kind of just want each other's minds involved with the project.
Yeah.
We want that person's essence to be involved with your project.
Yeah. I mean, another thing that it doesn't have to be on the podcast, but another thing that you mentioned earlier, which when you said like, how do you choose a manager? Something that sticks with me that was really cool that Jason said. He said, let's give this a go. And the worst case scenario is we leave with new contacts and we've learned something, So that's pretty badass. Like, and that's what happens, I guess. Like, why not give things a go? And if like the worst case scenario is if we part ways, is that we had a good time and we gained new contacts and we also maybe learned some things off each other.
You make a really good point because I think a lot of people have this issue where they don't make any decisions. Like they don't go after anything. They don't say yes to anything because they feel like saying yes to the wrong thing would be worse for them than just going for it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it
Yeah.
sets a lot of people back, like whether it's music, whether it's sports, whether it's anything, you know what I mean? Like sometimes certain opportunities are presented to you that you don't necessarily think are going to be the greatest opportunity, and they turn out being exactly what you needed. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So it's really interesting that you say that. So are you the kind of person that do you read a lot? Are you into like personal development and things like that?
Hold that thought.
We're holding for just a moment. He's grabbing some.
Sitting right next to me here.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. There's the stack. Okay. So see, and that in itself explains so much.
Yeah. I just dropped about 100 books. But I will say this. Don't think that I read self-help books all the time. I'm actually, if I read something, it's generally scientific. I read I'm weird. I like to read about quantum physics, and
you're just like my sister. So I see the parallels there.
I can't read fiction for some reason. I
can't either. It's like, it never interests me enough. You know what I mean? I like to know that the things I'm reading about are actually like possibly real or have some reason behind them.
Yeah. I mean, I'm happy with fiction and movies. My one favorite thing to do besides music is to watch movies, which sounds lazy, but when you tour a lot and you get back from tour and you've just been to like 10 different cities in 10 days, sitting down in a movie theater eating popcorn and having a glass of wine is the best thing ever. It takes you to a whole new world. But when it comes to reading, I can't read fiction because maybe it's for a lack of trying. But I more like to learn. If I'm reading, I like to learn. But with movies, I often also watch movies multiple times because I watch the first time I watch the movie to watch the movie and enjoy the whole thing. The second time I watch the movie is to listen to the score.
So you and I are very similar in nuanced things like that, because I'm if I'm not listening to, so I don't generally like to physically read, right?
Yeah.
My eyes don't really track words very well.
Yeah.
So I'll listen to a lot of audiobooks, but if I'm not listening to audiobooks, I love watching movies or podcasts or like series videos, things like that. And I generally do the same thing. If I'm watching a podcast, I'll watch it one time through, and then I'll give it a couple of days, and then I'll watch it a whole nother time through, so I can see if there was anything in the conversation that I didn't pick up on, any tidbits or any, because a lot of the time, you know what I think happens is you hear something that catches your interest, and then your mind starts to go on a tangent off to think about that interest. And then you miss a whole segment of the conversation just thinking about what you heard.
No, exactly. And I think a perfect example is that I watched a movie called Abominable, which is an animated, it's like a kid's film. But it's about this Yeti that gets found in China, and they have to get it back to what's that big mountain again? Mount Everest.
Right.
And it's such a beautiful story. I watched that movie for the first time, and I watched it and I was like, oh, wow, it's so powerful. I love it. And then I watched it again the second time because I wanted to listen to, I shut my eyes a lot in it just to listen to what's happening with the music, because I care so much about the score in it. And I walked out the second time and I texted my agent who represents me for film score. And I'm like, dude, this sounds crazy, but have you seen Abominable? The score in that film is so good and so beautiful. And he texted me back. He goes, yeah, that's one of our guys. We rep him.
Oh my gosh.
It was pretty cool. It was like one of those moments where I'm my dream is to score a big film. I would love to really do a big film. I'm working on stuff now that I can't talk about, but my dream is to score a big movie. But it makes me feel a step closer when my agent is like, yeah, we rep him.
That's amazing. Hey, you're putting it out in the world, and with all of the different things that you've done and the fact that you've come up on opportunities I don't even think you thought you would come about. Yeah. I'm sure that you're going to end up finding a way to score a film at one point in time.
I'm working on it, man. I'm working on it.
You're going to get there, man. Hey, TyDi, thank you so much. I'm going to wrap it up here, man. I don't want to take up too much more of your time. We are going to be in LA together at the end of the month.
Sweet.
So hopefully we can sit down, and even if we get a 15, 20-minute addition to the podcast.
Let's do a proper 1 hour chat. But now you know more about me. Dig deep.
Right. Now we can get into the real stuff.
Yeah, we can talk about crazy ass shit, like if the aliens are real.
I'm so down. So down. That's my kind of podcast, man. Thank you, TyDi. I'm gonna go ahead and sign off. If there's anything you want to plug, anything you want to talk about, I'll give you the floor to close it out. And again, I appreciate it so much, man.
I'm so grateful to be here, and I hope you enjoy my new music. I have a track called New Normal out with Bella Renee, and we wrote that track really recently. It's about this year, and it's about how hard it is to write a song during this year. And it's specifically, it says, I've hated every song I've made this year except this one. So for the first time in my career, it's a song about itself that speaks about itself in first person. Check it out. It's called New Normal.
Awesome. Thank you so much, TyDi. Thank you guys for checking this episode out. I appreciate it. And I hope to see you guys in the next one. Peace out.